Hey y'all, Chris Bassett here, and I'm going to be building a couple of end tables for my living room. I'll be using some scrap wood. Let's get into it. I want the end tables to go onto either side of my couch, so I'm going to take a couple measurements. 26 inches tall by 22 inches long by 16 inches wide. So I head out to the garage and I grab a couple of my best looking boards. These boards are reclaimed from another project. They're pressure treated, and I used them for outdoor stuff, so I used them to build a picnic table and some furniture. They're about 5.5 inches wide and 1.5 inches in thickness. I'm going to be using these boards to build the entire end table. The top, the legs, everything. I'm going to rip these boards in half so it gives me legs that are 24 inches long by 3 inches wide. It's a lot easier if you rip the boards first. I just clamped it to the table and let the edge hang over. That way when I used my circular saw, it didn't damage anything underneath. Next I'm going to cut the top of the table. So I want 22 inches on the length of the table, and I'm going to need to make 3 cuts. So I'm placing marks at 22, 44, and 66 inches. It's always a good idea when using power tools to use hearing and eye protection, which I'm doing neither here, so don't follow my example. So I've got the 4 legs cut and the 3 pieces for the tabletop now. So here's a rough shape of what the table will look like. I'm going to cut a couple of skirting pieces so we can assemble the tabletop to the table legs. I take a couple of rough measurements, and I'm going to use 2 16-inch pieces on the bottom here, and then 2 pieces of 19-inch for the side. I also did rip these skirting pieces in half so they're only 3 inches deep. It's the same way that I cut the table legs. Okay, so now when it comes to assembly, it's a little tricky. Since I don't want to see the screws from the outside going in, I'm going to drill some pocket holes to the inside of the boards. Pocket holes will conceal the hardware so you won't be able to see the screws when the table is in its upright position. So here I'm just kind of placing the parts, dry fitting everything together. This is what it'll look like in the next step of assembly. I've got to purchase my pocket hole jig, so when it comes in, I'll finish that step. Alrighty, the jig came in. I ordered it off Amazon. It's not too bad. I'll put a link down in the description. It's like 10 bucks. It did its job. So the idea of a pocket hole jig is you take the drill bit, you set it so it just barely penetrates the wood. You want it to go in, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of the way. So clamp it, and then set that set screw, and then you'll just drill the hole at an angle to the wood. So you'll set the depth of the bit so it's about 1 inch from the bottom of the board. That way when you screw the screw through the board, it has something to bite onto both sides. I think I used roughly 32-inch decking screws total per table. So before assembly, just make sure you're on a flat, level surface, and then screw your decking screws in. Make good contact, make sure they're a solid bite, and yeah, everything should work out fairly well. You can clean up the pocket holes with some sandpaper, or I used a little bit of a wood chisel to kind of take the bite off. With the top assembled, we'll go ahead and work on the legs. So we're going to do the same technique with the legs, get them into position, and then drill pocket holes into the legs. One thing I do like to do is I look at the table for imperfections in the wood, and then I try to put that towards the inside or the back so it's less likely to be seen. And here I've assembled the legs to the table with the pocket hole jig. It is still a little wobbly, however, so we're going to put a couple cross members in between the legs. So I went ahead and ripped the board so you got a 3-inch cross member by 10 inches wide. And then I centered it on the legs. The legs are 24 inches, so I put the cross member at 12 inches. I also used the pocket hole jig to create pocket holes to conceal on the bottom side of the cross members. That way when the table's in the upright position, you won't be able to see any of this hardware. Hey, table's looking pretty good. It's fully assembled, so now it's ready to be sanded and stained. I just have a little orbital hand sander, so I'm going to take out some of the roughness off the top and the edges, corners, and then just clean up the texture. Table's kind of dirty, so we're going to sand it, get it looking clean, and really bring that wood grain out. I used a Rust-Oleum stain and polyurethane, the ebony color. That way the table's really dark. It'll match the theme of my living room with a almost black table. And then I just used a little foam roller and then a small touch-up brush to get some of the corners that the roller can't reach. Hey, check out this other video right here. I've got an Amazon link for the products that I use down in the description. If you want to help out the channel, use that link. No cost to you. You can throw a couple of pennies at me. I really appreciate it. Thanks.